Hello, everybody. You're watching the Smoking Hot Coffee Show. My name is Amol Patel. I'm in Los Angeles. Every day, Monday through Friday, 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, we talk to people in the startup world and startup founders. Today, I'm joined with,
Hey guys, I'm Jeff Pelton down here in San Diego.
and today we got a really, really great interview with Pia from RailsGirls.com. She's at Singularity in San Francisco. We got to talk to her about the whole Rails Girls movement. Jeff, tell us more about Rails Girls. Yeah, bring that up.
Rails Girls, great. What'd she say? They have done events in over 100 countries, about 130 events or something
Yep.
like that.
Yep.
You can go on their event page and see all of the upcoming ones all around the world in Australia, Germany, Brazil,
Hmm.
India, Slovakia,
Right.
Poland,
Yep.
the Netherlands, Turkey. I mean, you name it, they're everywhere, and
Yep.
you can see the past events. What a great event for it's a workshop, right? Like a 2 day workshop that they
Yep.
teach Ruby on Rails and some web development to women
Yep.
who come to the event. And
Absolutely.
they've told us one of the great things about the structure of the events is they open source most of the material,
Yeah.
which I think has contributed to the growth and the ability for people to take this event to their own home and locations.
Yeah, yeah. So she spoke about the early start of the whole Rails Girl thing and how it started to grow and expand around the world. So far, they've done over 130 workshops. So if obviously whenever I go to tech meetups and tech groups, there's usually very few women there, and I think it's a big problem. I think as more and more technology has become part of our daily lives with mobile and all that, I think there are many women out there that have got problems that they want to solve via technology, and instead of just consumers, they turn into makers, and that's what they quickly do in this 1 or 2 day workshop. And if you go to their blog, and Jeff has pulled that up here, we got 120 South Asian women here in Bangalore are doing a workshop, and I think a lot of women are intimidated by the technology, by the
Yeah.
just a number of men that are there, and by the
Mhm.
by the the language itself and
Yeah, I
the
was going to say
vocabulary.
real quick. I mean, I've told my story a few times, but I'm intimidated by technology, right? And I think part of what interests me the most is the creative outlet, what's possible, what you can make out of the technology. But unfortunately, the tools themselves are often very cumbersome or
Mhm.
very intimidating and difficult to get into, especially those first couple of steps, right? Because they're command line tools, and unfortunately a lot of them are made or built by guys, so they're sort of the documentation and the influence is very male driven. So it's really nice to reset it where it becomes more approachable
Yeah.
for everyone, not even just women.
Absolutely. So this is a great interview to watch if you want to learn how to create a small movement. If there's a big problem or cause that you want to champion, she talks a little bit briefly about how that grew and how to really open source what you're doing so that the movement can grow and the cause can be expanded around the world. So there's a lot of really great stuff there for that. And of course, Singularity University itself is an amazing place, and a lot of people doing some incredible things. They're trying to change the world. She's working on a team
Yeah.
that's literally trying to change the world. And she talked briefly about that, and it was a pleasure having her on. If you want to hear more about people like her and past interviews, please check us out on smokinghotcoffee.com and email us. We love getting those emails at info@smokinghotcoffee.com. Jeff?
Yep, absolutely, guys. Please do check out the website, and you can contact us there, and you can subscribe to our newsletter. Let us know how we're doing. Suggest people that we should have on the show, or if you've got friends that you think we should have on, let them know about the show. And if you're out there working at a startup or working in a tech job, hopefully these interviews give you the motivation that they give us, and that extra oomph throughout the week to know that you can get out there and build it and do it yourself. So this is another great interview for Smoking Hot Coffee.
Absolutely. So with that, let's cut to the show. Hi, Henrietta. How you doing?
Hey, excellent.
Thanks for
It's
coming.
great to have you on
Excited.
the show.
Yeah, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm super excited.
Yeah, yeah, this is so great. This is so great. When I discovered you, I don't know how I bumped into the site and what you were doing. I just thought, wow, we've got to get this person on because anytime I go to meetups or hackathons or any kind of techie thing, there's like one woman in there or two women, and that's it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah. And so
Yeah, it's usually pretty sad.
it's awful, and I'm glad that you're changing that. So give us a little bit about your background and why are you doing this? What's the
Sure.
problem? You're obviously the women in tech, that's a big problem. Why are you solving it? Why isn't anybody else out there doing this?
Well, there's a good bunch of people trying to solve it, but my own background is in business and diplomacy, and I got swamped into entrepreneurship when we hosted Steve Blank in Finland. And I had always had the entrepreneurial side in me, but not the technical skills. And that really bugged me because I found technology when I was like 20 or something.
Right.
And but I thought that, okay, everybody needs to have this chance. And Linda and Kari, two really good friends of mine, were doing Rails Girls. They had their first Rails Girls event in Helsinki, and then I thought, wow, this is cool, let's do this. And then we started doing these events abroad because I was also not living in Finland anymore.
Gotcha.
I was around. And
okay, so really
then,
quickly, so you felt
sure.
this need to be able to communicate technically, and you're like, why? I don't understand what's going on really, and that was the issue. That was the main
Well, there's a
frustration.
lot of like jargon and all this stuff that you don't really pick up that easily. And how I see it is that, like, if you're a girl and you want to learn about technology or want to learn about software development, it's really intimidating to go and crash a party where like 100 guys are, I don't know, having cocktails or something
Right.
like that.
Yeah.
So it needs to be like a safer environment.
Yeah.
I don't mean safe in any way that guys are bad or anything.
Right.
It just makes you feel a bit uncomfortable if you're a beginner and
Yeah.
you don't really know anything about it.
Absolutely.
And it's nice to be with sort of people in a similar situation.
Yep. So not only are you
So,
a beginner, but you're also obviously the only female. So it's like the double whammy hitting you. You're
yeah,
like, oh my God, this is too difficult, or this does not feel
yeah,
comfortable. I don't want to go to more of these meetups. Yeah.
yeah,
It can be intimidating, I'm sure. Like the documentation alone is like where we spend a lot of our time as developers, and it's
yeah,
often very dry, very boring,
yeah.
hard to keep our attention, and probably written by guys sitting in cubicles
Right. Yeah.
or
Yeah, I mean,
desks.
like there's a lot of sides to it. Like, not all internet needs to be black and gray, and also like Railscross is not a hardcore programming workshop. Nobody's going to be a coder in one day or something like that.
Okay.
But the thing is that you introduce them to this like big magical world of technology where you can do anything that you want.
Right.
And we actually get really hands-on in these workshops, and we start doing these little web applications ourselves.
Right.
And then you see what you came up with in just 5 hours or something like that. And suddenly this whole new world of opportunity
Right.
like is in front of you. It's not just reblogging or liking anymore. It's like, okay, I can
Right.
start creating the web,
Yeah.
which is
Nice.
essentially really cool because I mean, obviously we're 50% of the gender, so
Yeah.
we should like there should be more variety on the internet. And it's not just women. I think it's like all internet shouldn't be made in Silicon Valley by 20-something white guys.
Right.
There should be a lot more variety
Yeah.
in it.
Absolutely.
And I think we're seeing that like really well, like coming on.
Gotcha. Well,
That's
clearly,
great to hear.
yeah, clearly with tablets and mobile and the web is everywhere now. Technology is
Yeah.
pervasive. It's touching us in so many ways. Our grandparents, our parents are now using tablets, and all these people are, even the older folks are getting online. So clearly, there needs to be more diversity there. Absolutely. So,
Yeah.
so tell me more about the workshop. Let's go into it really briefly. So you were doing this with your friend, and your friend started it, and then you kind of joined in. How did that whole thing happen?
Yeah, we were doing like a lot of projects before, and I saw the first workshop, and then we just decided with Linda that, hey, why don't we start doing these in Central Europe as well? And she went to Singapore to do one, and we had a lot of fun, and we got like so much community love anywhere we went. The Ruby on Rails developer community is really tight knit. They always helped us.
Right.
And also local tech sponsors, everything like that. Everybody was just super open to this. And so it kind of like started really getting out of hand because people were like, hey, why don't you come to our city? Why don't you come to our city?
Ah.
And then Linda and a bunch of us were at Railsberry conference where we then open sourced the whole Rails Girls curriculum so that anybody anywhere in the world could do their own Rails Girls workshop.
Gotcha.
And we would just provide the materials and help them out and link them with people in the area. So it pretty much went so that when somebody had been to a Rails Girls workshop, they wanted to do their own in their city
Gotcha.
or something like this.
So let me.
And so it started like spreading little by little.
Okay, so let's unpack this a little bit because you said a lot there. So I'm
Yeah.
very, yeah,
Sorry.
I'm very excited that this thing has grown and that you're expanding and the fact that you've open sourced it. So tell us really briefly in the beginning, like how did the word spread? Now, you said the Rails community is very helpful and
Yeah.
did you send send out like a tweet to some sort of a big person in the Rails community, like a DHH? Did he retweet this, or did you get on a listserv? How did that first initial spread happen?
Well, the thing is, like, in every one of our workshops, we have coaches who are experienced Rails developers, or maybe even not so experienced, but anyway, like in the Ruby and Rails development scene.
Okay.
And so when they hear about it, they start telling people, and then they start telling people, and they start telling people, because it's a very tight-knit community globally, and they all sort of follow what they're doing and everything.
Gotcha.
Software changes so fast that you're sort of keeping up to the latest news all the time anyway.
Gotcha.
And they really liked it, the coaches everywhere. And so they started coming to different cities and everything like that. And that's
Okay.
the coaches and the volunteers who have made those workshops are really like the sort of carrying force.
Gotcha.
Because without them, like, devoting their time and energy
Right.
and passion, it wouldn't
Well,
work out.
like anybody that's passionate about a topic, I'm really curious. Like, how did you first get those initial coaches, and did your partner find them? Did you find them? Did you reach out to people? How did you get the first five or?
Usually you find them pretty easily, and you just Google a bit, you find them on social media or something like this. There's usually always meetup groups or some sort of evening hangouts or something like this, where you can just try and get your message in or something like that.
Right.
And usually people are really helpful.
Right.
And of course, like, nobody wants to see a non-diverse community or anything like that. It's not like people don't want females to come into technology or any kind of other representation. It's just that there's an entry barrier, and so these people were really helpful. They wanted to.
Well, it's obvious that you had a great cause, so that's number one. You have a great cause, right? And obviously there are people there that want to contribute to this cause. So how did you guys first come up with the curriculum? Tell me more about that.
Well, there was a bunch of developers called Kisko Labs in Finland, and then there was Karri, the other co-founder. He's a guy, and Linda got inspired by Rails Bridge when she was in San Francisco, which is a sort of Rails, also a Rails workshop for women. And then they just sort of made it a bit different. We have like sort of some HTML and CSS and some explaining things in there, and we have balloons and silly posters and everything possible. And it's very beginner friendly workshop, I would say.
Gotcha.
I'd love for you to.
It kind of like also evolved a bit during time, but basically it was just tested that have these little workbooks and let's do this kind of a simple app, since Twitter Bootstrap was there and sort of all these tools online, and then you just sort of combine them somehow and it starts working.
Gotcha.
It's awesome. I'd love for you to talk more about the motivation and inspiration for people that are working, that are taking the courses. Like, so for us as developers, we kind of know what Ruby on Rails does, but like you mentioned, it's for creating apps, and for me, that's my bread and butter, and I love creating. That's my creative outlet, is creating apps.
Yeah.
How are the women approaching this? How are they reacting? What sort of apps are they creating? Particularly, as opposed to the male-dominated.
We get a lot of like everybody coming to our workshop, and then they're like, "Hey, I have this great idea for the startup and this thing. Why don't we start building this?" And we're like, "No, we can't do that right now. Like we have 5 hours time." And we usually try and get everyone in the group started at the same time. They all can work on their own apps, so it's kind of like a Pinterest style thing where you can add photos and commenting and stuff like this the further you get. But the idea is that since they're all working on sort of like the same thing that they can then personalize, they can also help each other, and you don't need to all the time be asking the coach. You can Google stuff and stuff like this, because you want to also engage people to talk to each other and to Google a lot of stuff, because when you get home and you hit the first error, you don't want to just be thrown back. You want to be sort of savvy and okay, no problem, I'll do this.
So you're training them for real world environments too, not just the comfort of the the material.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 I was gonna ask, like, obviously this is not a several week or several day process. It's like a 1 day thing. There's hard limits in terms of what you can build.
Yeah.
How do you frame sort of like, okay, these are the limits, guys? How do you guys approach that? Like,
Well, it's the structure is simple because we have like some lightning talks and some sort of stuff explaining like web applications in general.
okay,
But the application itself, if you know what you're doing, you can do it in 20 minutes and
really?
you can be done, you know?
Okay,
But we've reserved a lot of time for it so that you actually understand the steps and the tools that you're working with.
mm-hmm.
If you just speed through the application, you won't really understand what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
What is the browser doing? What is your terminal doing? You know, stuff like this.
Gotcha.
So there's a lot of time for it. So a lot of people don't even finish it because they tweak so much.
Right.
Like they are like, oh, let me put this picture or that one, or let
Okay.
me make a Singapore city map or something like this.
Gotcha.
But then they work on it at home,
Okay.
and it's no problem.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So in a way,
So
this is kind of like
people just
it's like a boot camp. It's almost like getting them started, getting them going a little bit,
yeah
and then they take off with it and maybe tweak it later. Have you
yeah.
noticed? Are you guys doing these in a series? Is this kind of a one-off?
Um, well, until now we've had about 130 workshops, I think. No, sorry. Yeah, 130 workshops in different cities. So it's kind of like it's like a snowball effect. So when people come to one, they might want to take it to their city.
Okay.
So there's been like, let's say, 4 or 5 in Brazil or something like that, but none in I don't know, Ecuador.
Okay.
And so it's easily when some community gets excited, then it's sort of like it gets easier for the nearby communities also to make some workshops happen or something like that. Or very usual is also if there happens to be a developer conference nearby, then the coaches like sort of also like say, hey, do we want to do this kind of a workshop, and why don't we do it now that we're all in town?
So 130 workshops. Did I hear that correctly?
Yeah.
Over 30 countries. Is that right?
No, in I think over 100 countries.
Over 100
We have
countries.
been
Oh, wow.
on every
Wow.
continent. Yeah.
That is
We haven't been, and the community
right.
has been.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
That is astounding, Henrietta. I don't know how you pulled this off. How does that feel to be kind of like part of this little movement here?
Well, actually, it's funny because people ask like, how do we pull it off, or how did we do it? I just read yesterday this amazing piece on how to not manage anything, and that's essentially what we're also like doing. We're not controlling anything. Like we have a lot of information flow on email and on different communication channels and everything, but essentially, like everything is up there and you can do it on your own. We don't micromanage. You're executing on your own, and there's like nothing that we're not much that we're restricting people in.
I
Like
see.
maybe a bit of the brand use or something like that,
I see.
but nothing much. So people basically have free hands to really like express themselves and make this kind of things happen. And I think that's also something that lets people take ownership of it and really make it happen in their own city.
I think that's a really impressive decision that you guys made. I mean, was it a real decision that you guys made to open source everything like that? I mean, because it really allows all of that freedom and possibility, and like you said, people to embrace it even more. Do you think that changed the way people react to the
Well, I
material?
think so. Yeah, I don't think like I don't think any role in open source world is to like actually how would I say it, control much anything. And we just noticed at some point with Linda that okay, this is going pretty fast right now, and either she actually told me that okay, either we let it fly on its own,
Okay.
or then we're gonna kill it, because both of us had our hands tied like
Right.
elsewhere as
Of
well,
course.
and like nobody has lifted pay ever from Rails Girls, and like it's all non-profit, so nobody really had the bandwidth to or otherwise we would have had to start this massive organization and hire people and everything like that. So we just decided to rather give it out to the community.
All right, so let's talk about this whole open source thing, because this is a big topic. I love it. How, as the people that help start this and people that kind of curate this, what actual control do you guys apply? Do you even apply any control in it? Do you feel still that it's part of your thing? I mean, how do you feel about it now? I mean, now that it's grown, and do you control it at all, even a little bit?
Well, actually, we help people to get started with, and it's actually a very simple sort of how do you make your own event sort of guide, and there's actually no reason not to use it because it's kind of like really ready there and all the materials are there and everything like that,
Yeah.
and you might have coaches from other workshops so they're used to it and everything like that. Something that's really awesome that we saw this spring was that our Berlin group, which has been amazingly active, really active group,
Okay.
they wanted to do a Rails Girls Summer of Code,
Okay.
which is a bit like Google Summer of Code or Rails Summer of Code.
Right.
So you get you get women working on real open source projects.
Wow.
So on Rails or Sinatra or something like this. And they thought of this idea that, okay, can we do this? And we were like, yeah, of course you can. They were looking for coaches, for volunteering for the summer, and for sponsors to get the women paid so they could actually work full-time on these open source projects, and in that way bring more women into the open source world as well, which is sort of like a great aim for Rails Girls.
Absolutely.
And me and Linda, we didn't do anything for Rails Girls Summer of Code. They did everything on their own. It's beautiful what they've come
That
up
is
with.
so
I think
great.
we have 4 or 5 teams now working on open source projects, and all around the world. They raised sponsor money for them, and it's really neat.
So let me get this straight. So if some small group splinters off and creates kind of like the Summer of Code sort of template, do you try to encourage them to try to contribute back to how to do a Summer of Code in your country? Do you do any of that, or?
Well, Summer of Code is a bit different than our usual Rails Girls workshops, because our usual Rails Girls workshops take 2 days, and Rails Girls Summer of Code takes about 3 months. Plus, you're actually employing people. They have to have a bit of a basic skill set, like very beginner oriented, but still, they have had to practice a bit and stuff like that.
Right.
And it's a much bigger project than a weekend workshop.
Right.
And I think somebody asked us, could we do this in our country?
Right.
And we're like, of course you can, but it is a humongous work.
It's a lot of work.
So
yeah.
without Travis CI and their foundation in Berlin, they contributed, I think 2 or 3 people working full time on just this project, and so that's major.
This is
it's totally different scale.
So we can say, Henrietta, that because of your early work, you kind of helped spark this other thing, right? You're actually directly causing this whole other thing, right?
Yeah, and it's a great idea, and we hope to see more. And Rails Girls is not anymore a 2-girl show or a 2-girl and a guy show. It's like a global community nowadays. So we get email exchange from Brazil to Sweden, and nobody even has to none of early people have to even mingle in between, because people are just helping each other around. So it's our ultimate goal, I guess, would be that we don't need Rails Girls anymore, that there are so many women in Rails development or in tech in general.
Yeah.
But for now, it's pretty nice like this as well.
So I have to say, Henrietta, in my opinion, this really is a big problem in tech. Not enough women, the intimidation, just all the guys at these physical meetups or whatever. And it sounds like you've kind of hit upon a big, what do you call it, treasure chest of problems. And here we go. This is it.
Yeah.
And clearly we hit a nerve, because now it's at 100 countries, 130 workshops. So I can see this growing. What are you going to do to keep it happening? Are you even involved anymore that much, or?
Yeah, but actually, I think what will influence even more than Rails Girls is the participants after they leave. And some of them will keep on developing, some of them will not, some of them might work in a startup afterwards or something like that. Okay. Some of the super success stories, I don't want to mention their names, but a few girls left from our Krakow workshop, and she went somebody told her like, hey, why don't you develop iOS? And she started developing iOS, and then she made this game for kids for iPad that she was selling on the App
Oh,
Store.
wow.
And a year later, she was speaking at a conference.
Wow.
And she is the kind of role model that young girls, even even women who want to get into tech need,
Yeah,
because she
yeah.
showed that, hey, okay, I can learn this stuff.
Yeah.
I'll learn it, and I start a company, and I do it, and here I am as a role model for others.
Wow.
Like
I
all
think
in
that's
1 year. One
yeah.
year.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
That's an awesome
politics are
story.
hardcore.
We don't get enough of those stories, out front and center.
Yeah.
I don't think.
Absolutely.
What other? How early on can we start here? Like in school, like what are these girls? I'm kind of self-taught. I think a lot of people can
Yeah.
teach themselves the web if they're interested. So you can kind of have any background. It almost helps not to have an engineering or a strict computer science background where
Yeah.
you get kind of tired of it or distracted by other problems. What are the backgrounds of these women, and how are they finding
Great
you?
question.
And particularly Rails, right? Like, is it just the hot thing to build on the web, or are they,
Yeah.
kind of interested in it? How are they getting here?
I don't think people maybe look at Rails that much. Some of them do, but mostly it seems like a web development workshop, and that's like the main focus. And then there's a lot of university students that or a lot of people over there.
Okay.
Social media, they've been following the scene somehow.
Okay.
We always try to get, like some sort of local media coverage before
Very nice.
our application dates close.
Very good.
But to be honest, we've really rarely experienced any trouble in getting enough participants.
Okay.
So, like somebody was telling us that, oh, why don't you have more boys in your workshops and everything? And one of our coaches was like, okay, I'll do some statistics for you. And he was in a Southern European country, and there was 10 open tech meetups where anybody could come, and they were also for beginners and everything like that. So there was 10, and there was 1 girl, 0 girls, 2 girls, 1 girl, 0 girls, 2 girls. Like this was a trend, and they opened up Rails Girls applications, and within 12 hours they had over 500 applications.
Wow.
That's in the same city. And then he was like, well, I don't know why, but this is what's happening. So we need this.
Okay. So hold on a second. This is interesting. So because there's the word "girls" in the title of this workshop or even this organization, do you think it just makes women feel more comfortable and it feels like, okay, yeah, this is where I belong, as opposed to this open thing? Because there are usually a lot of guys show up for that. Do you think that's what's going on?
Well, I mean, I'm not saying all women are comfortable in like sort of more female environments. I mean, we have guys as coaches, we have guys helping out, it's not like we're closing them in some faraway place,
Right.
but it does resonate for some people,
Yeah.
and not everybody has to like it, but it seems to have like in this format, it seems to have enough people willing to come, more than we can take, so it's definitely needed, and that's what it's there for.
Wow.
And it's not, we don't want to like segregate anyone, and Rails Girls really wants to get in the community, not segregate itself into a separate community somehow or something like that.
Right.
But there just isn't that, and
Right.
it's not about like. Also, we get sometimes like, why are you called girls and not women and stuff like this?
Yeah.
Well, it
Sure.
just happens to be the name,
Right. Right.
Like it just sounded good.
Yeah.
Linda thought of herself as a Spice Girl, Power Girl,
Right.
when she thought of the name.
Right.
So it's called Girls, and so what,
Right. No, it works. It's fun. Makes it approachable, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But I think those role models are really important, and I hope that like we can see more women role models. And you were asking about the early age. I actually did a children's workshop in Finland as well, where we were doing like robotics and a little bit of electronics and coding and stuff like that with 6 to 12-year-olds, and they were super excited. Like kids love anything, If they get excited with anything, they'll just go on and learn.
Yeah.
And something that I wanted to like show them is that, because kids nowadays, I have a 4-year-old niece, and she's super excited about iPads and iPhones and everything. But kids don't understand that they don't need to be just consumers. They can also be makers of the technology.
Yeah.
And when you show them that, then they get even more excited. And I don't want every one of those kids to be a hacker or something like that, but technology is already all around us, and it's
Right.
going to be so in the future as
Absolutely.
well. So it's better to understand the language of this like web and sort of technology world in an early age, because then you can make sense of it later.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I think that's so important to get over the stigma early on and, at least, let them know like this, it's not that
Yeah,
intimidating. It's not just
yeah,
programmers
exactly. Not be
and
scared of
engineers
it.
that
Yeah,
are, building it. Is the website mehackit? Is that the one you're talking about?
yeah.
Okay.
Okay, let me pull that up.
Yeah, yeah.
I think that's great, working with kids at a young age and, feeding their desire to create, because
Yeah,
that's what I'm so passionate about with, all these sometimes cumbersome tools of engineering are, for the end game of building cool things. And so
yeah.
I think, demonstrating that to children and focusing on that is really valuable.
So
Yeah,
Henrietta, so I'm seeing a little trend here. You're teaching women here to
yeah.
code, you're teaching kids here to
I know.
code. What's going on here? I thought you were doing economics, and what was the other thing you were doing? International
Yeah,
business. What is going on here?
I know. No, non-profit everything.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah. What's happening here? Talk to me.
I don't know. It was Railscales was a whole lot of fun. Now it's like there's, as said, it's almost supporting itself already. And yeah, I just wanted to do a kids workshop. I was in Finland for the last. I haven't lived there for 6 years, but now I went back for a half a year last Christmas. So then I just wanted to do a kids workshop and see
Okay,
how it goes.
gotcha.
And it was a lot of fun. So yeah.
Well, it sounds like you kind of want to definitely stay in technology and maybe even possibly do teaching. I know you're talking to us from Singularity University. What are you doing
Yeah.
over there? Tell us more about that.
Oh.
Yeah,
Well, this is like the crazy, crazy hub for technophiliacs and everybody
yeah,
wanting to
yeah.
change the future.
Right.
So I'm in a program called Graduate Summer Program,
Okay.
where Singularity University challenges 80 people from around the world to come up with a project that positively impacts 1 billion people in the next 10 years.
Whoa.
So we're basically trying to address the big global grand challenges:
Hmm.
health, education, poverty, energy, food, water, um, and stuff like this.
Wow.
So we've had like really, really great lectures here. The participants are absolutely amazing. There's people from astrobiology, from nuclear non-proliferation, from human rights, from like anything, you name it. And you put these people together for 10 weeks, and then next week we'll see what we get out.
Whoa. This
Wow,
sounds.
those are some big topics,
Yeah.
big
Yeah,
issues, and some really knowledgeable people. It sounds like
yeah,
professionals in the field.
Yeah. It sounds
very big.
so ambitious. What is it? What? I know you're on a team. What are you guys working on? Can you tell us a little about that?
Sure, I'll tell you a little bit. So we're turning methane-emitting waste into biological charcoal in local reactors.
Okay, okay.
So
Let's slow down here. So a meth emitting waste that's in bioreactors, and you're turning it into what?
charcoal,
Charcoal. So that's friendly for the environment for humans.
yes. So
Wow.
basically,
Okay.
for example, here in California,
Hmm.
there's millions of tons of organic waste. So
Okay.
that's agricultural waste or anything that degrades that's being put into big landfills,
Okay.
Hmm.
which is very bad because it emits a lot of methane, which is a greenhouse gas 20 times more powerful than carbon dioxide.
Okay.
And this is happening while at the same time charcoal, which is kind of like the thing that you see in your grill, what you use for grilling,
Okay.
which is
Hmm.
totally different from coal. Not totally different, but different anyway.
Okay.
Um, Charcoal is being used for industry purposes, such as silicon production. You can't do the chemical reactions without charcoal,
Interesting.
or it's being used for iron production and every kind
So,
of different
so
industries.
correct me if
So
I'm wrong. If you do figure this out, it doesn't this sounds like a big money maker for some industries? Could this be a profit center? This idea?
yes, yes, definitely. I mean, it's a really big market, and it's sort of getting where it's a good time for us to move in. So instead of there's a lot of polluting happening right now with deforesting and then burning the trees and then shipping the charcoal halfway across the world,
Okay.
and we want to like stop that, do it locally, and use the waste. So we're
Wow.
trying to combat global warming, uh,
Holy cow.
which is pretty big.
No, that's huge.
But
Fairly big
I don't
objective.
know.
Jeff,
I don't know.
Jeff,
We'll see.
Jeff,
I think you guys have a smart renewable strategy though to keep the byproducts local, and
Yeah,
anytime we can get rid of shipping stuff like
yeah.
needlessly across the world, that's great.
yeah,
It's a growing trend. Why not bring it to energy? I mean, everything's like being available local soon, I hope,
yeah, absolutely.
and sharing economy and stuff like that. So,
So,
Uh,
I was going to say, Henrietta, that in little ways, you're kind of like this big crusader. You're trying to solve these
yeah.
problems for women. Now you're trying to, with the kids, get them involved in robotics and technology. Now you're doing this whole thing with the carbon and trying to save the planet.
Yeah.
Whoa, that's a lot. You're biting off a lot. It sounds like you're also having a little bit of fun over there.
I love it. I wouldn't do anything else. If you would put me in some other job, I would just die. I
y-
I really love it that I have like I'm really passionate about my projects, and yeah, I wouldn't do anything else. I mean, if it's worth investing your time, it's got to be really good.
Yeah, I love that. Wow.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's a huge project, and it's definitely worth it. Tell us more. How'd you get to be a part of the team
Yeah,
there at
yeah,
Singularity? I
yeah,
mean, that's
exactly.
an epic team to be a part of. I don't know that would come out of our free market necessarily.
Um,
Just someone dreaming it up.
no,
Right.
no. Well, they collected all kinds of different people here, and I still today don't know why they chose me, but I guess they made some error or something. I don't
I
know,
don't think so.
but it's
No.
it's been like my dream for a long time to sort of save the
Save the
world,
world.
and everybody is always like so skeptical, like yeah, okay, whatever,
Right.
like,
I'm gonna
but
do
no,
something
no, I
about it.
really want to do
Well,
it.
just
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
just for our audience that doesn't know, so Singularity was started by Ray
Hmm.
Kurzweil and Google, right? And
Peter
uh,
Diamandis.
Peter Diamandis. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Was Peter Thiel involved in any of this, or
He was one of the early founders.
founders?
Yes,
Okay.
there's only Ray and Peter who founded it,
Okay.
but then there's a sort of like a small board of people who were involved in the early age.
Gotcha.
And actually, when you're here in Silicon Valley and you tell people about Singularity, especially some more sort of how would I say it, senior people,
Yeah. Yeah.
then they're like, oh yeah, I was there when it was founded.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So it's all kinds of
Have you
yeah,
been meeting very interesting people? I imagine. Can you tell us a little about that?
definitely. Definitely, from all sides of the world. So there was Chris from UNICEF, Time 100 most influential people came to tell us that everything they planned in New York essentially failed, and
Wow.
they first first when they started developing stuff on ground, then it took off. Then there was Sebastian Troon from
Yeah.
Udacity and from Google,
Hmm.
and who else? Yeah, I don't know. Everybody on the staff is also super impressive. They've left some pretty substantial careers to come and do Singularity, or at least be a part of it,
Right.
which is really amazing. And yeah,
Wow.
it's all about the people
Yeah.
wherever you are,
Absolutely.
like,
Even though,
Yeah,
and their
gathering
stories.
great minds.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Even though a lot of us are all into technology, but ultimately, at the end of the day, that's the people that are also
yeah,
part of the technology. Absolutely. So, all
yeah.
right. So you've got a couple more weeks left on this. What's next after this for you?
Uh, well, we'll see. We're pretty committed to our project,
Okay.
so we're gonna see how, where, and when that flies. So
Hmm.
we still have a
Awesome.
lot of work to do,
Okay.
and then we can put up legal entities and fight through emission regulations and everything like that. What's
Okay.
involved in doing energy.
So you
Um,
do want to continue this afterwards and maybe turn it into some sort of enterprise and actually change the world
yeah,
with this idea.
yeah, definitely.
Wow.
So
Full-time commitment.
Yeah.
yeah, we're thinking now about how and when and where to raise some initial capital,
Hmm.
in which form and stuff like that, and a lot of interesting stuff. But now is definitely there's definitely big signs about the market and everything being really ready for this technology and this thing. So
Okay.
we're quite excited.
Wow. Sounds very
Could be
cool.
a longer plan.
Okay. So going back to Rails Girls, let's not forget about the Rails Girls.
Yeah.
So where do you see your involvement in it? Where would you like the organization to go? What's your feeling in the future?
Uh, I hope that there's a lot of new people coming in and taking over stuff, getting excited, organizing new things, such as Rails Girls Summer of Code, and exciting much more people into technology everywhere around the world. So I hope that's what's going to happen, and I hope we can democratize a lot of the internet stuff.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
yeah, I hope it can inspire people, but I hope that ultimately all the participants and everybody involved, or anybody who even hears about it, just gets inspired and does something, because we're not the only organization. There's a load of uh, all kinds of beginner-friendly organizations out there, or any kind of tech meetup groups. You can go to Code Academy online, anything like that. So it doesn't need to be necessarily us. There's a whole world abundance of these
Okay.
technology things,
Okay.
so you can just grab any one of them.
Okay, so if a woman is watching this show and she's not into technology, but she's watching
Yeah.
it and she's hearing your story, what would you say to her? Like, what would advice if she's kind of afraid of all this stuff?
Yeah, well, I would say that people are programmed to listen to negative news and to fear all kinds of stuff. Just forget about that and do what you want to do. Like, that's all I can say, because sometimes you hear this little fear in your head going like, hey, this is not really sensible, or I don't know if I should be doing this.
Right.
I should be A, B, C, D. And then you just got to shut it off and do what you want to do.
That's so great. I love it. Wow,
I
Jeff.
think Rails Girls is a great example for everyone. Like you said, even if you're not into that specific niche of
Yeah,
Rails or technology, maybe we see similar girls groups popping up for other technologies,
yeah, exactly.
Backbone JS or
Yeah,
WordPress or whatever it may be. But
definitely. You're allowed to fork all our materials on GitHub and make your own uh, Python boys, whatever you want to make out
Right,
of it.
yeah,
right. Python boys. Yeah, I like that. That's cool. That's cool. All right. Well, Henrietta, it's been a pleasure chatting with you. Thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
So,
yeah, we really appreciate your time.
absolutely. So,
Yeah,
if somebody wants to get a hold of you or through Rails Goals, whatever, what's a general good email to get a hold of you?
you can tweet me at P Henrietta K, or you can go to railsgirls.com and you can search for stuff there, or contact at railsgirls.com. That's good.
Awesome. Wow.
Great.
Thank you so much again.
Yep.
We'll talk to you soon.
Okay,
All
bye. Have a
right.
nice day.
Yeah.
Thanks.